Okay.
Hello and welcome to tonight's Tenement Museum virtual book talk. My name is Olivia Knaus and I'm with the Development Department. I'm very excited to be in conversation tonight with Leah Cohen, who's a chef, restaurateur, and author of tonight's featured cookbook, Lemongrass and Lime. And we're in for a treat tonight because Leah will be demonstrating one of her recipes from our cookbook. And for those who haven't picked up a copy yet, Leah writes in her book that as growing up half Filipino, she never thought of food from her mother's side would become her life's work. But after working in many Michelin-starred restaurants and competing on Top Chef, Leah was still searching to define what made her food hers. And she found the answer in Southeast Asia along many different travels there. And she rediscovered the deliciously sweet, pungent, and spicy flavors of her youth and set out to take them back to New York to her acclaimed restaurants, Pig Khao in the Lower East Side, which is just a couple blocks from the Tenement Museum, and Piggyback NYC, which is in Chelsea and just recently opened a couple months ago. And throughout our conversation tonight, if you have any questions or comments for Leah, please feel free to share them in the chat box on YouTube. And we'll also be sharing a link to purchase Lemongrass and Lime so you can whip up Leah's recipes in your own kitchen. Lastly, if you're a fan of the Tenement Museum and like connecting to the stories we tell, please consider donating or even becoming a member so that we can continue to share these stories with an even broader audience and in 2021. So without further ado, welcome, Leah. We're so happy to have you.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. I'm excited for tonight.
Yeah, us too. I was thinking before you jump into the demo, could you tell us a little bit more about your background and also the inspiration for Lemongrass and Lime?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I grew up, visiting Southeast Asia. My mom is from the Philippines, so I'm half Filipina. And I've been going to the Philippines since I was about 4.5 years old. And we would go probably every year or every other year. And so, I was exposed at a very early age to cuisines and flavors from that part of the world. And whenever we would go to the Philippines, I would always stop in Vietnam or Thailand or China or Japan or Korea, just because it's so far. It's like a 20 something hour plane ride that and we would go for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. My parents would always want to, include as many different things as we could. So we would always stop somewhere else. And so really I was building my palate, but I just didn't know it at that young age. And then I've worked in, a ton of different restaurants in Europe and in New York. And then I really just wasn't passionate about, it was hard for me to figure out what my food voice was, I guess. Everyone asks, what's your food voice when you have, get interviewed? And I really didn't have one. Even when I was on Top Chef, I didn't have one because I was so used to cooking everyone else's food. I didn't know what my voice was. And so, I spent a year traveling throughout Southeast Asia, and that was really where I learned my food voice. And then I came back and I opened Pig and Cow, and it's been 8 years since we've been open.
Wow.
And thank you. It's a hard thing to do, especially in New York City and now with a pandemic. But we are still open and going strong. And yeah, so and every year, usually, except from this past year, my husband and I go on an R&D trip to Southeast Asia. So the recipes in the cookbook are based off of my year abroad and my trips going back just for R&D purposes. And we actually took our photographer to the Philippines, to Singapore, and to Thailand so he could catch all these beautiful shots in those countries, because I really wanted to transport people to those countries, especially now during COVID when people cannot travel or it's dangerous to travel. I really think that this book kind of transports you to that part of the world. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And reading through your book, I definitely felt transported just because of like the vibrancy of all of the photographs and how beautifully photographed your food was too. So it got me hungry and wanting to travel. Um,
Yeah, one of the great things about the photos and the cookbooks is there's so much, different colors. I mean, tonight our food is like not that colorful because we're doing ground pork. Sorry, ground beef, so it's brown. But we have pops of red and green and all that stuff. But in like a lot of the salads, there's all these different herbs and the papaya and carrots. So there's a lot of color, which makes the photos pop and it makes the cookbook a little bit fun.
yeah, definitely. And I enjoyed reading through all of the different recipes that were in your cookbook because there are over 100, right?
Yeah, I think there's something like 125. I'm not sure what the final count was,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of recipes in the book, and the book took me like 3 years to put together, maybe even longer from when the proposal was submitted, from sorry, working on the proposal, and then
Mhm.
when it was submitted, and then finally to get it to print, it was probably like 3.5 years, which isn't probably a little bit longer than what most people take, but it's fine. I took my time and I think the book came out beautiful. So, I mean, 3.5 years in the making. And that's what we got. So,
Definitely. With so many different recipes, I was really curious, and also running your own restaurant and having so many things going on. How did you decide which recipes to include in the cookbook?
so honestly, there were so many more recipes that I wanted to include because it took like over a 3 year time span to, get the book out. Um, there were recipes that I wanted to include, but I couldn't because at that
Mhm.
point we had already submitted and the publisher approved what we were doing. So I really just kind of picked things that I thought were the basics and the essentials that people needed to learn and understand Southeast Asian cooking. And I wanted to include the pantry items, the ingredients, and a lot of the condiments because I think those are really important in Southeast Asian cuisine. And then just the ones that I thought were winners, I guess, that I had and I thought were so delicious that I just wanted people to have access to because a lot of the times when you buy a cookbook, it would be, specifically Thai or specifically Vietnamese. And so I wanted to kind of, no one really has not many people do Southeast Asia as because it's so broad.
Mhm.
So I wanted to narrow it down and just really pick my favorites and also some of the classics. Like
Mhm.
we had to throw pad Thai in there and we had to put a banh mi in there because that's what people, want to learn how to make as well.
Definitely. And I was really taken by kind of the holistic nature of the cookbook, just as you were mentioning. From the start, did you know that you wanted to include so many different, like everything from condiments to main courses to street food to snacks and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think including all those different categories was really essential to the book because that's those are the all of those things are important, right? Like for you need to learn about all the different sauces that you could potentially use, like all the different types of soy sauce, the different types of fish sauce, or if it's not fish sauce, it's shrimp paste, or you know what I mean? So all of those things were really important. So I wanted to include it. And then all the different noodles and so
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it was probably, there was so much more information. This just kind of like touches the topic and there's just so much more that I think people could learn. But I think this is a good base.
Mhm.
I also didn't want to overwhelm people so much because this kind of cuisine can be intimidating. And the cookbook itself, some of the recipes are, for advanced people.
Mhm.
And some of them are simpler, but I'd like to give everyone sort of that base knowledge, and then they can choose what they feel comfortable cooking from the cookbook.
Sure. So, what are you demoing tonight for us?
Okay, so tonight we are making one of my favorite dishes. It's in the meat chapter, but it's kind of a street food dish. So it was kind of hard, like figuring out, okay, so this is a street food dish, but it has meat in it. So which chapter are we going to put it in? I didn't
Mhm.
actually wind up having to make those decisions. The editor and the publisher did. So that made my life a little bit easier. But tonight we're making pad Caprao. So it is a stir-fried beef dish. Traditionally, it's made with holy basil, which is very, very hard to find, especially on the East Coast. So I'm substituting it with Thai basil. But again, if you can't get Thai basil and you can't get holy basil, you can actually use Italian basil, and it's not that bad. Like it's not that off, rather. So I know that a lot of the ingredients can be hard to source. So there are, I think, recommendations in the book, like websites that you can visit. Most Chinese local groceries, Asian grocery stores rather, they have a lot of the ingredients, but honestly, everything you can probably find is online. And now that everyone's shopping online and getting everything delivered to them, I think people are willing, to order a bottle through Amazon or whatever, as opposed to going to, a store. So, and then it's a stir fry beef. We have some Thai chilies here. These are red Thai chilies. I think in the cookbook, it calls for red and green. But again, like, I'm going with what I could get at the store. And I'm actually missing kefir because I went to H Mart and they did not have kefir. So we're doing, there are, unfortunately some restrictions when you can't find the ingredients, especially the fresh produce, but I think it's fine. And then it's served with a fried egg, and I'll show you guys how to fry a Thai style fried egg. So it's a lot more oil, it's a lot crispier, and it's a higher heat. And I think it's the most delicious way to eat a fried egg. But if you like a softer white, then you can eat it with a softer white. So I'm gonna go ahead and start making the dish. Is that cool?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, great. So actually, before I heat up, we're gonna make the sauce. So the sauce, as I was saying, there's different types of soy sauce. So I have Kikkoman light soy here. It doesn't have to be Kikkoman light soy. It's just the brand that I like because of the salt level, and it's low sodium. So I'm pouring this into our beef stock. You can also use chicken stock, or you can use water. That's totally up to you. And then we have some oyster sauce here. And the oyster sauce gives it a nice kind of sweetness to the dish. And then I have some dark soy. And so the dark soy is different than the low sodium soy. It has more of a molasses flavor, and it's not as salty. It's really more for kind of color, and umami, I guess. And so I'm gonna actually keep that separate because that is gonna make the beef really nice and dark. So now that it's a simple sauce. So now that we have the sauce done, we are going to heat up our wok, and we have some canola oil. And I'm using ground beef in this dish, but you can use ground chicken, you can do ground pork, you could do like an impossible meat, like any like protein that you want. I guess you could do a tofu as well, like a ground tofu. And if you wanted to do sliced chicken or, sliced beef, you could do that as well. And so we're gonna let the wok get nice and hot. And then we're going to add our garlic. So the garlic is actually like not super finely minced. It's kind of like smashed, and then I did like a rough chop because I want to be able to like get that garlic flavor and taste that garlic. So it's kind of chunky. And then I showed you the Thai chilies, and traditionally they make like a paste, and the paste is with the garlic, and the chilies, and well, the red and the green chilies, if you want to use, really the green is there for color. And it's the red one or the spicy one. So I made sure that I had the red ones because I like it spicy. And so you make like a rough paste in a mortar and pestle, and then but I just chopped it because the pestle part of my mortar, is that the pestle part? I'm not sure. The one that goes in your hand, that broke the other day.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I'm waiting on another one to come. And so we're gonna add the garlic, and we're gonna add our red Thai chilies. And I will say, add a little bit, and then if you want it, and then taste it. If you want it spicier, you can always add more. And at this point, the chilies are gonna fry, and you might start coughing or sneezing just because of the potency of the chilies. And we're gonna get this, I'm actually gonna turn it down a little bit, and then once we add the beef, we can turn it up. So we serve this dish at Pig Khao, and our kitchen is an open kitchen, right? So essentially It's just like smack in the middle of the dining room. So when people were eating indoors, back, you know, in I guess the beginning of 2020, people would just like kind of start coughing if we added like a lot of chilies. And it would like go away really quickly, but you know, I could just like on any given night you would catch like, especially the people who sit in front of the chef's counter, which is right in front of the kitchen, they would be the ones coughing. So if I start coughing, it's because of the chilies.
Sounds good.
And so we are just going to essentially break up the meat and fully cook it. And I'm using 80% fat, 80% lean beef. But if you wanted to go like 90, 95 is totally fine. I just think fat makes everything taste better. You could probably, I mean, you can also do this with ground turkey. And so now that the meat is kind of cooking and releasing its liquid, I'm going to turn it up all the way. And you just want to keep like kind of using the back of a spoon. It doesn't have to be a metal spoon. It can be a wooden spoon, or traditionally in a wok, they have this like long metal utensil, and it's kind of, I call it a shovel. It looks like a little shovel. And you would use that to kind of break up the meat. And you just want to make sure that like you don't have big clumps. And yeah, so we're just gonna wait for that to cook. And while that's happening, we can add the dark soy now. So the dark soy is going to add a really nice color. And then we're just gonna cook that. And the juices are gonna start releasing, and it's gonna get really nice and delicious. And I'm just gonna scrape all of the dark soy. And then once the meat is cooked, we're going to add our sauce. I forgot to mention that there is, I didn't put it in there. There is sugar that's supposed to go in the sauce. And so when you're cooking Thai food, there's always this balance of sweet and salty. So Thais actually put sugar in almost everything, whether it's a savory dish or whether it's a sweet dessert. And that is just to balance everything out. And I think that's kind of genius because you don't know that there's sugar in it. Like you don't taste it. It's not sugary, but you're like, oh, you know, it just tastes balanced to me. And so that was something that I learned while traveling. And I touch on that in the cookbook. It's all about balance, and you know, balance. It's a balancing act of all the competing flavors because there are a lot of strong, bold flavors in most of these dishes. And so, yeah, so now we can add our sauce. And I would say this is eaten with rice. So it's going to be a little salty. And most of the things are salty because everything is meant to be eaten with rice in Thai cooking. And so at this point, I'm going to just kind of cook out and reduce the sauce a little bit. And we can move on to the eggs. You can also add some pepper right now too. You can add the pepper to the sauce as well. I'm using black pepper. Traditionally, it's done with white pepper. Again, I ran out of my white pepper and the store did not have it when I went today. So, and that's fine. You can use the black pepper instead of the white pepper. So on to the fried eggs. We have a big saute pan of oil. I would say it's probably, I don't know, like an inch of oil in there. And we're gonna get it to where it's pretty much smoking. And then I usually serve this dish with 2 eggs per person. So you can do 1 if you're not as big of an egg fan as I am, but I'm obsessed with eggs. It's great protein. And so I like to eat it with 2 eggs. And the eggs should be room temperature. I think they just fry up nicer. And a trick that I learned to making eggs that are not room temperature come to room temperature faster because the eggs in the shell are porous. You can literally just like run some warm water in like over the eggs or let it sit in like a bowl with warm water. And probably within like 10 to 15 minutes, the eggs will become room temperature. And so we are just waiting for the oil to get nice and hot. And I'm going to crack the eggs into the bowl. And then this is going to go fast. And also the oil is going to splatter. So just be careful when you add the eggs, kind of like take a step back, or like, you know, I don't know, make sure you're wearing an apron because it will splatter a lot. But that's just kind of like, you know, part of having these delicious crispy eggs. I'm going to turn this down and we can get back to that while we're gonna fry our eggs. And one way to test if your oil is hot, you can get a chopstick and you can put it inside the oil. And if it starts bubbling, then you know that it's hot. But, or it can start, like you can start seeing smoke, but we're not quite there yet. So we'll actually go back to the Caprao. We have some long beans that are here. And if you can't get long beans, you can use string beans. And I just chopped them up kind of like, I don't even know if my measurements, is this a centimeter? It's definitely not an inch, maybe a half a centimeter. And so this is really here to add texture to the dish. So I'm just gonna put in a handful, and you wanna cook it. You still want there to be like a bite to this. And then at this point, if you had kefir, you would add the kefir right now. Like I said, I could not get the kefir. So we're omitting it. And if you find kefir and you can buy like a big amount at a time, I would say buy it and then freeze, like freeze it, and then you can pull it out whenever you need it. It thaws out really nicely, and I think it's a great staple to have in your freezer. So this got really hot, so I'm just gonna turn it off, and this is done. I'll just wait. So we can actually add our, well, maybe I'll wait to add the Thai basil. I think I'm gonna taste this because you always have to taste your food whenever you are cooking. So that's delicious. I'm gonna squeeze some lime, and this is just gonna, again, balance everything out. And I would say for the portion that we're doing, probably like half a lime or maybe more. I like mine a little bit more acidic. And then I'm gonna wait to fold in the Thai basil because that's like the very last thing. So when you have herbs, you really want to stir them in off the heat. And so now this is cooled. So I'm going to take my eggs. And you wanna, yeah, see, it's definitely popping on me. You wanna make sure that you have a plate lined with paper towels. Like you want to be ready because this is going to go real fast. And you have a spatula, and you're just going to kind of let it set. And you really want the edges the edges of the white to get really nice and crispy. Sometimes what happens is because you're cooking at such a high heat, the white will come over the yolk and kind of cover it. So you just want to keep a close eye on it because you want to make sure you still have that runny yolk. Because that essentially, once you like break the yolk, it makes a whole nother sauce to the dish, which is amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I love eggs so much, because I love a nice runny yolk. And so this is taking, it'll probably, depending on how hot your oil is, it will take approximately a minute to a minute and a half. And you just want to kind of like let it go, and it will just get like really nice and crispy. Again, just like back up because you do not want oil splattering on your face. And so, yeah, so I think once the egg is done, I'm going to add the basil, and then we're just going to plate it up. I have made some jasmine rice in my rice cooker. I highly suggest everyone gets a rice cooker. You get perfect rice every time. And hold on. All right. So I think you guys can see just like the brown edges and how crispy it is. And the white did kind of come over, but you can still see that it's nice and runny. And so I'm going to move this out of the way, and then we can plate the dish up. And so, like I said, it's really important, I think, to have rice with this dish. Rice is a very essential part of Thai cooking, and Southeast Asian cooking. Everything is pretty much meant to be eaten with rice unless it's like a noodle. Um, and so I'm going to add the Thai basil right now, and the residual heat should kind of wilt everything. And this is probably enough for, I don't know, depending how hungry everyone is. This is probably like for 3. So usually I would just say fry, either if everyone's having 1 egg, get this ready and then fry an egg to, for each person. And so then I have some rice here. I actually took this plate from Pig Khao. This is what we plate the dish on. And we're going to take some rice. And this is jasmine rice that I use, which is commonly eaten in Thailand. Honestly, I eat rice like probably 2 times a day. So a rice cooker is super essential for me. And I'm just going to keep kind of tossing it so the basil can just wilt. And then we can add it to the dish. And then we would put the egg on top. And so it's this really delicious, meaty, saucy, spicy. I actually could have added all of the chilies. I'll probably add the rest of the chilies on top because I like it really, really spicy. And then we just put the egg on top to the side. And then I'll just pour some more chilies on top. And that's the dish.
That looks delicious.
It is. I love it. I absolutely love this dish. I can't wait to eat this after we get off.
I wanted to kind of ask you about the kind of family style nature of your recipes. Did the kind of push towards family style recipes and making food for multiple, does that come from your travels or kind of your family history of cooking?
I mean, I would say that the family style cooking comes predominantly from just the style that people eat in Southeast Asia. I would never just like, unless it was maybe lunch or something, you would never just like order a dish for yourself. It's just all communal, and it's just like, a salad and then a noodle and everyone just eats together and picks, and it's great. And so I think, and also that's how I grew up eating as well. We did a lot of family style in my household, but I think that family style is the best way to eat because you're not like obligated to eat one dish. You can share everything, and that's how we do it at Pig Khao.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really great, fun way to eat.
Definitely. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about kind of as you're growing up, what roles you had in the kitchen, and if you see that as being kind of like a guidepost to where you are now in your travels and operating your restaurant.
I'm sorry, you said what rules do I have?
Sorry, what roles you had in the kitchen, if there were certain pieces of these family style meals you spoke of that like were your kind of preparations, or if it was kind of like everyone in your house cooking together.
So for me, my role was the rice cooker. I would, my mom taught me how to make rice in a pot from probably when I was like 8. And so one of the reasons why I have a rice cooker now is because I feel like it comes out perfectly. And I had such a traumatic experience, like always cooking rice for my family. And then my mom coming, like judging me for my rice cooking skills. And so, yeah, she taught me how to make rice. And so she would call me when she was on her way home from the office, or she was leaving the office, and she'd say, "Hey, Lee, put on a pot of rice." So that always became my go-to role, I guess. And then, so she taught me a fun trick, basically, and I don't know how this works for everyone. Some people, they use the thumb, or some people use another part of their finger, but it's essentially like the first top part of your thumb where it like, bends. That's how far you fill up the water to. So you would have a bowl, and then the rice is on the bottom, and then you would fill it up to where your thumb hits the rice is how much water you add. And so that, like, I never measured anything. when I was making the rice, it was always like the thumb method, or Joe Coy says, I think he uses his like index finger. And I don't know how it works because everyone has different size fingers, but like for whatever reason, it totally works. And so I was also like the prep girl. So I had to like chop or smash the garlic, or ginger or things like that. But yeah, I grew up making a lot of food, cooking at a very, very young age, just, helping because my parents both worked. So I was
Mhm.
always helping in the kitchen.
That is very similar to one of the stories we actually tell on our tour, one of our tours. One of the residents was in charge of putting on the beans before his mother came home from work. So it's nice to hear that kind of reflection in your own story too.
Yeah,
Um,
same thing. It's like
yeah.
the carbs. You guys are in charge of the carbs.
And in a lot of ways, it was kind of like, since the mother worked, it was a way of kind of keeping watch on her boys to make sure that they actually came home from school, and the beans, if the beans were done right, they did what they did what they were supposed to do, which is kind of
Right.
fun.
She knew they came straight home from school and they didn't like,
Yeah.
play or whatever, get distracted. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of curious to also hear about what it was like to write one of the recipes like you just showed us for amateurs, because your book is very accessible for home chefs. So what was that process like?
Well, thank you for saying that it's accessible for home chefs, because I thought, and my biggest fear was that people would find it too intimidating and too difficult. And while some of the recipes are on the more challenging side, I really tried to include recipes that were not, not so like recipe within a recipe within a recipe,
Mhm.
that people would feel comfortable making. Maybe the only thing they felt uncomfortable or difficult was sourcing the ingredients, but when it came to the actual recipe, they felt confident that they could do it. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of me making this cookbook is just to spread the knowledge that I have learned along my travels.
Mhm.
So but I will say that converting a lot of the recipes that I use for the restaurant into like tablespoons and cups was very challenging, because we weigh everything at the restaurant on a scale in grams.
Okay.
So the conversion was a little challenging.
I could imagine. I think, and especially I feel like at home cooking, it's kind of like a pinch of this, a pinch of that. So I can
Yeah.
imagine that was kind of tricky. Um, but yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear too about converting what you do in a restaurant to kind of bringing it home. And it's exciting to hear that the kind of fan favorites of the restaurant also you included in the cookbook, because I know with we're not as able to travel as much. So bringing Pig and Cow and those favorites to our kitchens and is definitely a benefit. And I know some of our viewers might actually be outside of the tri-state area and have not been able to come to Pig and Cow. And I was just wondering, because I think there might be a question about this in the chat. How has our current moment kind of impacted what you do at Pig and Cow and Piggyback NYC?
So Piggyback is closed at the moment. We did
Okay.
not reopen yet. We opened in like the end of January, I think, or the beginning of January. I can't remember. It feels like it was so long ago. Um, and so we were only open for about 2 months, and then COVID hit. So
Mhm.
and it's in, like you said, Chelsea, or like around Madison Square Garden. So that part of New York City right now is it's like a ghost town.
Yeah.
So we are waiting to reopen until there's people there. There's also no tourists. So, and we had, that was a huge, we're close to the Empire State Building. So
Mhm.
um so we're waiting on that, which is fine. I don't want to rush it and just open for the sake of opening and then just lose money.
Mhm.
And Pig and Cow, we reopened in June or July, I think the beginning of July. And we really had to pivot. We didn't want to rush to reopen. We wanted to thoughtfully think out how we could change what we were doing prior to COVID and how we could, make this successful.
Mhm.
So we actually decided to do a street food takeout window. So we changed the menu up. We have some of our classics, but the menu is much smaller, much more condensed, because we don't want to have any waste,
Hmm.
and we also don't have as much staff. And then we started working with charities, and we started working with meal subscriptions, and we're actually going to launch with Gold Belly right after the new year so we can ship nationwide. And so it's all to goes really,
Hmm.
it was outdoor seating when during the summer, and that was great. But now we're not allowed to do indoor dining, and it's cold. So it's really takeout, delivery, meal kits. We actually are offering a holiday meal kit right now, so the end of the year. And so that can get delivered to you. It's minimum 2 people, maximum like 12. And yeah, so we've just really been trying to be as creative, with everything, and stay positive. And we speak to a lot of our friends, and we know what works and what doesn't work.
Hmm. Definitely. On the topic of street food, I wanted to ask you one more question. There's a whole section in your book about street food and snacks, and you actually were explaining that street food is cheaper than actually buying the ingredients for
Mhm.
yourself. Could you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in Thailand, the street food scene is insane, and a lot of people don't cook at home, because you can literally like walk down any street, and there'll be stall after stall after stall, and it can be as small as one person cooking their one signature dish, and this person has perfected it and cooked it for 40 years, and it's the best pad thai or the best oyster omelet or whatever. Sometimes they'll do two dishes, like pad thai and oyster omelet goes really well together because of the equipment.
Hmm.
Or you can walk down the street and it's like a little bit of a bigger restaurant, and they do like 8 dishes. But everything is outdoors, and you can just like scoot up in your motorcycle and then order your food, and then wait. Like everything is pretty quick, pickup time. So wait 5 minutes, wait 7 minutes, and then scoot off and go home.
Hmm.
And so to buy for whatever reason, like this would probably cost, I don't know, maybe $2, 2 US dollars. But buying all the ingredients would cost way more. So it's all about volume. They do a ton of volume. And it's just a passion. It's like the street food vendors, it's their passion. And like to cook 1 or 2 dishes for 40 years over and over and over again, you have to be passionate about it because otherwise you'll go
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
that's incredible. We have one of our viewers sent in the question, what recipes and techniques did you bring back from Myanmar? Myanmar, sorry.
So there is a dish that is called shan noodles in the cookbook, and that is from Myanmar. And then there's a tomato salad and then an eggplant dish also from Myanmar. And so I literally knew nothing about Myanmar prior to going. I think I went. It was the first trip my husband and I ever took as a couple, and it was for someone who is a very seasoned traveler, it was a little overwhelming for me. Just because usually what I do is I do extensive research before I go to a country, but because Myanmar was basically cut off from the rest of the world for so long, it was growing at such a rapid pace, but the internet couldn't keep up with all of that information, and couldn't put it up fast enough. So I really felt like a little overwhelmed because I didn't know what to do. And then I reached out to a cookbook author who was amazing, and she set me up with a tour guide. And one of the things that I learned that my husband and I joke around, they do onion, garlic, ginger, and tomatoes, and like everything. That's like the base of a lot of the Myanmar cuisine. So yeah, it's delicious. And honestly, I really want to go back because it's been like 5 years, and just I'm sure that the change is insane from when I was there like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. It seems like 5 years has just like flown by, especially with
Yeah.
everything going on. Kind of on the topic of your travels, I wanted to note that I really enjoyed the kind of anecdotes you share with each recipe and share if there's a specific place that you picked up a recipe or a chef that you cooked alongside on your travels. And I just wanted to ask, when you're kind of researching your different travels, How did you decide places to go? And then also, how did you get connected with chefs in different regions?
So when I was picking which countries to visit, essentially when I embarked on my 1 year abroad of traveling, I really wanted to focus on Thai cuisine.
Mhm.
However, after 3 months, my visa had run out, and so I had to leave the country, and then I could come back like even the next day. I had to do a visa run. But so I would go to, I was like, oh, let me check out like Vietnam for like, I've been there like, 5 years ago. Let me check out Vietnam. And then I was like, oh, wait, Vietnam's amazing. The food is amazing. Let me stay here for a month. And then my visa would be up there. And then I'd have to go back to Thailand. So basically, Thailand was my home base. And every time, and I was able to get a 3 month visa prior. And then every other country was 30 days. Um, and so I just also, in order to find the chefs, I really just had no shame. I was constantly like asking people if they knew anyone in, set me up with someone in Singapore, or set me up with someone in Malaysia. And so once I had like one chef that I knew I could work with, they would set me up with a network of other chefs in other countries. So it was really by word of mouth. And there were some people who were like, "No, I'm not helping you," and I was like, "Okay, that's fine." But I really had no shame. I was like just asking everyone, like, "Give me
Yeah,
help." Yeah. Tell me who
that's
to
it.
work for. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, have you been able to stay in contact with a lot of the folks that you connected with in your
Oh
travels?
yeah. Yeah. I have friends that I mean, usually I go back once a year, especially in Thailand because I had an apartment there. It was like my home base. So
Mhm.
I have a bunch of friends in Thailand and also in the Philippines.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. And have they come to visit you at all in New York? Is it kind of like an exchange at all?
Well, some of them are actually friends that had moved, like that I knew from the States and then moved to Thailand or moved
Mhm.
to the Philippines. And some of them have come here as well. But nah, most of the time I just like, I'm like, oh, I need to see you. And that's my excuse to go visit Thailand.
That's great.
Yeah.
And if we weren't in the midst of a global pandemic, did you have any travels planned for this year?
Yeah, so well, not for 2021, but for 2020, over the summer, I was supposed to go to Korea. So I was supposed to bring my son to the Philippines for the first time to visit family. And then the plan was to leave my son with my parents, and then my husband and I would go to Korea for 5 days and do like a street food, just like a food tour.
Mhm.
But that obviously didn't happen. And so I'm hoping that we can do it next summer.
Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yeah.
And in the future, are there any kind of places that are on your bucket list that you'd like to go?
Oh my god. I mean, honestly, I love traveling. If I wasn't a professional chef, I wish I could be a professional traveler. I don't really know how that works, but I am obsessed with just learning about people and through their food and not only in, Asia or Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
Um I really want to start traveling to South America and learning about South American, I said to my husband the other day, I was like, I really want to go to Peru. Like, I really, really want to go to Peru. But
Mhm.
like honestly, at this point, I would go anywhere. Like
Yeah,
I just like need to not be in my house.
yeah. I think we are all kind of feeling a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But luckily, I mean, with your cookbook, we can simulate travel too, and the foods that we would eat along our travels, we can now bring indoors to our own kitchens,
Absolutely.
which is
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and kind of like on that topic of cooking and your cookbook and your travels and the recipes that are included, um, I'm interested to hear from your perspective as a restaurant owner. Um, what are ways that viewers can support other chefs in their neighborhoods?
So I think in order, I would say to show your support, you can definitely do takeout and delivery.
Mhm.
And I would recommend calling the restaurant and not ordering through a third party service because they take huge fees. The fees were supposed to be capped at like 10 or 15%, but unfortunately they've found a way around it and they charge you for marketing.
Mhm.
And so you just wind up getting, we get like 15 to 20% taken away. So call the restaurant directly and place an order with them, and see if, if they don't order delivery and you don't feel like going, obviously use a third party.
Mhm.
And then a lot of chefs are doing meal kits.
Mhm.
A lot of chefs have like swag, like t-shirts or hats, um, or gift cards. Gift cards are a thing. Buying
That's great.
cookbooks. What else? Yeah, those are, and just, kind of spreading the word and sharing the love on like social
Mhm.
media to, promote supporting other restaurants and chefs. And I think
Mhm.
if we all just say how important restaurants are and how much we need them, especially we want our favorite restaurants to survive the pandemic, then we have to just be vocal about it.
Definitely. Have you seen the neighborhood of, well, the restaurants in the Lower East Side kind of banding together in a way to kind of um, reach their kind of followers in different ways than ever before?
Honestly, no. I feel like everyone is just like trying to survive at this point and like focused on their, establishment.
Mhm.
Um and I think it was in the summer it was a little bit different because it was like there was a vibe, right? Like
Yeah.
the streets were it was just there was a vibe to it. And now with the winter, everyone is just in their own little cold space, and so we
Yeah.
haven't been as I guess, you know, not at, yeah, it's not the same. But
Mhm.
definitely during the summer, we were
Definitely.
all like, it was it was a street party,
Yeah. Yeah.
following COVID protocols. Yeah,
Yeah. Safety, but being able to see each other and kind of eat wonderful food. I definitely
exactly.
miss that. Speaking of that, one of the common themes that you brought up and also comes through in your books are like how attracted you are and how excited you are by like street food and like open markets. And I was wondering, pre-pandemic, is there any kind of similar open market that is your go-to either in New York or in the United States?
I would say, I mean, not Chelsea. Well, Chelsea Market is not indoor, but I love Chelsea Market, and I feel like it incorporates like street food with all like their different stalls, and then also, they have amazing like produce or a spice guy. So
Mhm.
that is great. Although it's indoors, and then outdoors, I would say Union Square Market is amazing as well. I mean that it's just an institution and
Mhm.
everything, it's beautiful and it's outdoors and you can like get to know your vendors. And yeah, so those are the two that I really like in New York.
That's great.
And then I go
Um,
to Chinatown like all the time.
oh
So
yeah, it's so close by too.
yeah.
There was a viewer that just submitted the comment. Thank you for sharing your story. Uh, I like Thai food, but Thailand is a diverse country and different cuisines. How, uh, even though it's a little bit less known to most Americans, the viewer's question is, do you have a favorite regional cuisine?
In Thailand. Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I would assume so. Yeah. My favorite cuisine is from Isan. And just I mean it's very similar, it's very close to Laos, so there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of things that are not crossovers. But I think the food is just very vibrant, and very yeah, it's probably my favorite region of Thailand, that or Chiang Mai.
Mm, okay,
Yeah, those
that's
two.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to just check and see if there are any more questions from our viewers. Um, just looking here. Uh, Kind of on the topic of your favorite cuisines, and you probably get this all the time as a professional chef, but I was
Mhm.
just wondering what the best meal you've had, like ever, in your travels.
I don't know. That is such a hard.
It's
First
a
of all, I
hard
have
one.
like probably the worst memory that any person my age has. So it's really hard to remember. I would say one of the most memorable experiences was at this restaurant called Nam. I
Mhm.
actually staged there for multiple times over, a course of a couple of weeks. Um, and I had cooked their food for, a couple of weeks, and then to actually sit down and eat the food, in the restaurant was a completely different experience. And the food is extremely spicy, and they don't care. That's how it's supposed to be served. And so I really like that and respected that. And that's probably one of my favorite meal experiences. And anyone who I've taken to Thailand, I always bring them there.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. It sounds like it's such a memorable experience. So
Mhm.
after you've experienced something like that, do you find yourself trying to recreate that once you return back after your travels in your own restaurant?
Yeah, so usually when we come back, my husband and I come back from an R&D trip and we visit, let's say, Vietnam. I like want to change the menu to like all Vietnamese food. And my husband has to be like, "No, stop. This isn't a Vietnamese restaurant. We can't make everything just Vietnamese food." So I definitely get inspired by my travels. And yeah, I mean, how could you not? You know what I mean? And when we go hard. Like we eat a lot, like a lot for 2 weeks. It's just like
Hmm.
Thanksgiving every day.
Just have to like fast a couple weeks ahead of it so you can
I just
fit
work out really hard for like a month prior,
it.
and then I'm good. And then by the time I get back, I'm like in the same shape I was.
That's great. And it's
Yeah.
exciting that you have such freedom with your menu to work around so you can try kind of different and incorporate different recipes you encounter. Um,
Exactly. I mean, that was one of the reasons why when we were opening Pig Khao, I chose to not be specific to Thai food or Filipino food. I wanted to make it just Southeast Asian, so
mhm,
would give me a lot more freedom,
mhm.
and wouldn't pigeonhole me.
That's great. So, what is your favorite thing on the menu at Pig and Cow? The favorite thing making, like that you make, I should say.
I would say my favorite dish to make at Pig and Cow is probably cow soy, which is in the cookbook. And
Mhm,
it's been on the menu since day one. And I don't know, for me, there's something therapeutic about like making curries and then frying curry paste. And we make such a huge batch of it that it will take me like an hour almost to fry the curry paste. And so I'm just like stirring there, thinking my own thoughts in my head. And it's such a complex dish.
mhm.
I just love it. Yeah.
That's great. And like such a perfect sounding recipe for like right now, like the start
Oh
of
yeah.
winter and also when most of us are like craving comfort food and warmth right
Exactly.
now.
Yep. It's perfect, but it's also surprisingly great during the summer when it's like really hot and you're just sweating and you're like sweating while you eat it and you feel like you're in Thailand because it's so hot there.
Of just recreating the experience in the US. I like
Exactly.
that. That's great. Yeah. I'm just gonna check one more time if we have any questions coming in the chat. Um, but in the meantime, as questions might be coming in, I'm really curious to hear about kind of what you are most proud about with your debut cookbook coming out, or an element that you're just like really excited about.
I'm just really excited to share all the information that I have had in my brain for the past 8 years or 10 years, maybe. And actually getting it to paper and being able for people to have a physical copy of like literally what's been going on in my brain. And so, because especially for me, like I had a co-author, but I wrote a lot of the book myself, and she just like
Mhm.
kind of cleaned it up and made me sound a little bit better. But a lot of the personal stories she couldn't write for
Right.
me. And so for me to just be able to put something like this together is just something that I never thought would be possible because I am not a good writer. I really have a short attention span to certain things. And yeah, it took me 3.5 years. So to be able to focus my efforts into creating this and being able to just, spread the knowledge is something that I'm extremely proud of.
Mhm. And how has your network of friends in the field and those you cooked with abroad, how have they responded to your cookbook?
Oh, they're super supportive. They love it. I mean, I have had like so many people just send me like pictures or tag me on Instagram and be like, "Oh, we got a copy of your cookbook." And, these are some people that I when I was a younger chef, I looked up to. And the fact
Mhm.
that like someone like Anita Lowe purchased my cookbook, and when I was growing up in the culinary world, I thought Anita Lowe was like a god, you know? So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's very humbling, and it's just amazing that people, you know, are buying my cookbook. Honestly, I was like, if I make a cookbook, is anyone going to buy it? Does anyone even care about what, like the recipes that I'm making? But we've sold a good amount. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah,
So
that's
people do
great.
care. Yeah.
And I think probably in more normal times, you might have a few more like in-person events to promote the book. And I'm just wondering, since we all have to be a little bit distanced now, in what ways are you sharing the cookbook with your followers?
Yeah, so usually, you know, people throw like a cookbook party, and my husband loves to go like throw a good party, and he's really great at it. So we had anticipated throwing a huge party at Piggyback because we have this amazing back like PDR space, private dining room space, which is huge and can probably hold like 200 people standing. But clearly we couldn't do that. So I've done a lot of Instagram lives with chefs, like my colleagues who want to cook from and learn how to cook Southeast Asian food. You know, I try to post about it. We did a huge PR push like right when the cookbook launched, and I think it's a perfect holiday gift to buy, even though, you know, Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa are done right now, but it's still holiday season, so it is definitely worth buying. And yeah, I mean, you know, you just have to get creative, and social is like the best way to promote
Oh
yourself
yeah,
and promote your products that you're trying to sell.
definitely. And I think a lot of folks are at home right now and looking at their cell phones and like surfing Instagram and Facebook and everything. So you have a very
Yeah.
captive audience, which is kind of a added benefit, I guess, of the moment we're in.
Benefit and also bad
Yeah.
for our brains. Really, I feel like I'm constantly like looking at everyone's Instagram, and my brain is rotting, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that these days too. But it really is the perfect gift because, I mean, it's the holiday season, some folks might be traveling, some folks that might not be. But cooking is like a loving act, and I think your cookbook in particular really lends itself to like family cooking.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to dive into more of your recipes as we head into the winter and when I'm
Yeah,
craving
and
more
actually
food.
on that note, I forgot to mention, well, I
Sure.
did mention that we are doing, we're going to start with Goldbelly,
Mhm.
probably in January. And one of the quote unquote kits that we're selling is a copy of the cookbook. It's a starter kit. So it has like hard to find ingredients. So it will have like lemongrass, kaffir, galangal, fish sauce, palm sugar, tamarind paste, like all of those things to really kind of give you a good basis for cooking recipes from the cookbook, which I'm very excited about because I think it is hard sometimes to source those ingredients. So
Mhm.
it kind of like comes together for you in like a nice little package.
Yeah, definitely a great experience. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be on the lookout for that. I think we have time for just a few more questions because believe it or not, it's almost been an hour.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I know the time flies.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments right here. Um, just yeah, I think there might be some people typing in their comments. Um, but Leah, I want to just thank you as people are getting their thoughts together for joining us tonight. It has been wonderful to hear about how lemongrass and lime came to be, and so exciting to really take to my kitchen and try something new to add different recipes into the rotation because these days, you know, we all fall into our patterns of our favorite foods and kind of what's easiest. And I'm really looking forward to trying something new. So thank you for sharing all of your recipes with me. And I'm really excited to kind of dig in. Um, but with that, I think I will just wrap up for the night.
Okay.
But thank you again, Leah, for coming. Um, and to the viewers out there, if you liked tonight's program, you can subscribe to the Tenement Museum newsletter to learn more about what virtual events are coming up. And if you'd like to dig into Leah's cookbook yourself, I think we'll be sharing the link to purchase the cookbook in the chat. But Leah, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun, and I appreciate you promoting the book. And I totally agree with you. People are probably in a rut right now, eating the same dishes over or cooking the same dishes over and over
Mhm.
again. So I highly encourage everyone to buy a copy of the book to try something different and maybe a little bit out of their wheelhouse. So thank
Definitely.
you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Have a nice night.
Thank you, you too. Bye.